They called her vulgar. They said she'd corrupt America's youth. Church groups boycotted her movies, and senators mentioned her name on the floor of Congress. Her crime? Being herself. Today, we're diving into the stories of Hollywood's most controversial leading ladies, women who were deemed too bold, too honest, too real for their time. Marilyn Monroe, the icon who redefined glamour. Marilyn Monroe's image feels like soft candlelight on white silk. Yet behind those famous photographs lay a constant battle over what society deemed appropriate. Born Norma Jean to a mother who struggled with mental illness and couldn't care for her, Monroe spent most of her childhood bouncing between 12 different foster homes and 2 orphanages. She experienced trauma in several of these homes and learned early that her beauty was both her greatest strength and her deepest vulnerability. Back in 1951, she wore a gold dress so form-fitting she could hardly move. When a columnist reportedly called her cheap and inappropriate, headlines exploded from coast to coast. Monroe's brilliant response: she posed wearing a potato sack, joking that critics would find even burlap scandalous on her figure. In Niagara, she portrayed an unfaithful wife, and her walk was filmed in slow motion. Review boards nearly cut the scene, calling her movements inappropriate for family audiences. When Some Like It Hot dressed her in beaded gowns that seemed painted on, the Catholic Legion of Decency protested once again. Yet Monroe balanced sensuality with genuine vulnerability, flashing that shy smile that softened even the harshest criticism. Despite her breathy, childlike screen persona, Monroe was a voracious reader who kept volumes of Dostoevsky, Freud, and Joyce in her dressing room. She had a childhood stutter that she fought throughout her life, developing her famous breathless delivery, partly to mask her insecurities. Her desperate search for father figures led to relationships with older, powerful individuals who often took advantage of her emotionally. She converted to Judaism before marrying playwright Arthur Miller, seeking belonging in a faith that valued learning and intellectual discussion. Off camera, she studied Russian literature and attended acting workshops, but reporters only asked about wardrobe incidents and romantic rumors. Marilyn once sighed, "Being viewed only as an object becomes exhausting. I just hate being reduced to a thing." Still, that image persisted, reminding future generations how quickly society can brand curiosity as inappropriate when a woman takes control of her own appeal. Mae West, the woman who rewrote the rules. Mae West earned her controversial reputation by being unusually bold for the early 1930s. Born into crushing poverty in Brooklyn, West witnessed her mother's struggle to maintain dignity while her father battled alcoholism. Her childhood in cramped tenements taught her that survival required constant reinvention and relentless self-promotion. While most actresses spoke softly and dressed conservatively on screen, West wrote her own play, Diamond Lil, and later starred in films where she wore satin gowns, spoke in that famous teasing voice, and filled her dialogue with clever double meanings. In 1927, West was arrested and sentenced to 10 days in jail for producing a play which authorities deemed obscene. She served 8 days at the workhouse on Welfare Island, turning the experience into publicity gold. Parent groups and church leaders claimed her jokes would corrupt public morals, and the production code cited her movies as evidence that Hollywood needed stricter oversight. Even a Boston radio station removed one of her comedy sketches for sounding too suggestive. Rather than toning down her act, West embraced the controversy, joking that censorship made her wealthy because every complaint brought more people to theaters. Her fearless approach turned criticism into her trademark, though it also locked her into the reputation of being her era's most scandalous star. Despite her brash public persona, West remained devoted to her mother until her passing in 1930, which devastated her. Friends noted that beneath the wise, cracking exterior lived a woman who never forgot her humble beginnings. Jean Harlow, the original platinum bombshell. Long before Marilyn's white dress, Jean Harlow's platinum hair blinded 1930s viewers. Born Harlean carpenter to a domineering mother who controlled every aspect of her life, Harlow escaped into an early marriage at 16, desperate for freedom from her suffocating childhood home. MGM bleached her hair until it shimmered like frost, then dressed her in silk slips for Red-Headed Woman and Dinner at 8. Harlo didn't whisper. She delivered slang across the set, calling suitors suckers and bosses big boy. Language critics said belonged on loading docks, not in theaters. Newsweek dubbed her the girl who made sin shimmer. In Red-Headed Woman, she played a secretary who marries her boss, confronts his wife, and charms almost everyone else, complete with a scene where she locks a door and tosses away the key. State censors clipped frames, yet audiences lined sidewalks, proving scandal sells. When a columnist asked how she felt about being labeled inappropriate, Harlo laughed. "Is that today's word? Yesterday, they called me something worse." Her off-screen nightclub adventures, often in backless gowns that dipped dramatically, fed gossip columns. Yet beneath the platinum bombshell facade lived a woman plagued by kidney disease from childhood illness. She hid her pain from colleagues, often working through exhaustion and sickness. Even so, co-stars praised her warmth, noting she minded her manners between takes. The contradiction fascinated the public. A Hollywood rebel with a polite handshake. Harlo's sudden passing at 26 froze that image forever. Dangerously alluring, eternally youthful, and still whispered about for daring to sound and look improper. Joan Crawford, the self-made star who conquered Hollywood. From Lucille LeSueur of San Antonio's poorest district to Joan Crawford of Hollywood's highest echelon, a transformation that required burying every trace of her impoverished past. Born to an unmarried teenager who worked as a laundress, Crawford's early years were marked by abandonment and poverty. Her father deserted the family before her birth, and her stepfather harmed her throughout her childhood. Her determination to rise above these beginnings created the most ruthlessly ambitious star of Hollywood's golden age. MGM groomed her as a flapper in the 1920s, but Crawford evolved with changing times, becoming a sophisticated dramatic actress in the 1930s and a tough survivor in film noir of the 1940s. She learned to reinvent herself completely, studying movie magazines to learn how stars should look, speak, and behave. Critics sometimes called her performances inappropriate displays of naked ambition, unable to see past her hunger for success, born from desperate beginnings. Her perfectionism extended to her personal life, where she controlled every detail of her home and children's behavior with military precision. The same drive that lifted her from poverty created a domestic environment of rigid rules and harsh punishments. Her rivalry with Bette Davis became Hollywood legend. Two strong women fighting for the same roles and recognition in an industry that preferred to pit female stars against each other rather than expand opportunities for both. Crawford's legacy was forever complicated by her daughter Christina's memoir, Mommy Dearest, which depicted her as an abusive mother, prone to violent rages. Whether the portrait was accurate or revenge, it overshadowed decades of professional achievement and charitable work. Her story reveals how the qualities that enable survival, control, perfectionism, ruthless ambition, can become destructive when applied to intimate relationships. Crawford's rise from poverty to stardom came at a cost that only became clear long after the cameras stopped rolling. Rita Hayworth, the dancing queen of seduction. Cue the rumba beat and a single satin glove sliding off an upraised arm. Rita Hayworth's dance in Gilda, 1946, remains Hollywood shorthand for slow burn allure. Yet in its day, the routine sparked protests. Hayworth removes exactly one glove, nothing more, but critics deemed it a striptease by suggestion and lobbied for cuts. Life magazine celebrated the scene, while parent groups called it inappropriate entertainment. Born Margarita Carmen Cancino to a Spanish dancer father who forced her to perform in seedy nightclubs from age 12, she endured years of inappropriate attention from adult patrons while still a child. Earlier wartime pinups of Hayworth in a black lace negligee adorned barracks walls worldwide. Some military chaplains complained the photo lowered morale by raising temperatures. Off-screen, she was born Margarita Cancino, shy and bookish, practicing dance steps until her shoes tore. Hayworth hated the love goddess brand, admitting, "People go to bed with Gilda, but wake up with me." Nonetheless, producers built each role around her hips' slow swirl, fueling the idea that her very presence was indecent. That single glove remains a 3-minute masterclass in how little it takes for Hollywood to stamp a woman with inappropriate labels. Her later life brought devastating early-onset Alzheimer's disease, which manifested in violent outbursts and memory loss that Hollywood initially attributed to alcoholism. For years, she suffered from a condition that wasn't understood, passing away alone and largely forgotten by the industry that had once worshipped her. Marlene Dietrich, the gender-bending pioneer. Fog curls across a Berlin cabaret. A husky voice slices through. Marlene Dietrich, singing Falling in Love Again. Born in Prussia to a military family, Dietrich experienced the trauma of her father's early passing and her mother's strict Prussian discipline. Her escape into Berlin's cabaret scene provided refuge from a suffocating bourgeois upbringing. In Hollywood, she arrived with trailing tuxedos, top hats, and a refusal to follow rules. Morocco 1930 shows her kissing a woman on the lips before tipping her hat to stunned gentlemen, an act many states tried to cut but failed. She then slips into a white satin gown for Shanghai Express, purring lines that implied entire nights of adventure. Review boards labeled her immoral. Newspapers used inappropriate as shorthand for her gender-bending wardrobe. Dietrich simply shrugged, saying, "Clothes have no gender." When the Nazis rose to power, she refused lucrative offers to return to Germany, choosing American citizenship over her homeland. She used her Hollywood salary to create a fund with Billy Wilder to help Jewish people and dissidents escape Nazi Germany, risking her own safety for others. During World War II, she entertained Allied troops on the front lines, sometimes coming under enemy fire. Her courage earned her the Medal of Freedom from the U.S. and the Légion d'honneur from France. Wartime photos placed her at the front lines, singing for Allied troops in a suit once again. To moralists, she remained indecent. To soldiers shivering in foxholes, she was courage itself. Dietrich outlasted the word inappropriate by turning every accusation into art, proving that a well-timed grin, a masculine cutaway, and the courage to blur lines could pull censorship's teeth while rewriting the very idea of screen allure. Brigitte Bardot, the French revolutionary. French sunshine, Saint-Tropez waves, and Brigitte Bardot dancing barefoot in and God-created woman. 1956, a scene that rattled international censors. The Catholic Legion of Decency condemned the film. U.S. mayors threatened bans. Headlines called Bardot inappropriate beach entertainment, and Variety used harsh language repeatedly. Yet Bardot simply shrugged, explaining, "I am authentic. I have nothing to hide." Born to a bourgeois Catholic family, Bardot was raised by conservative parents who were horrified by her career choice. Her mother once remarked that she would rather see Brigitte gone than becoming an actress. Her off-screen life, sunbathing topless, long before it was common, fed magazines for years. Battalions of paparazzi stalked her, desperate for another scandalous snapshot. Bardot's carefree attitude toward love, marriages, affairs, and her refusal to apologize conflicted with 1950s expectations. Still, her performances carried genuine emotion, especially in Contempt 1963, where a marriage dissolves amid Mediterranean views. At the height of her fame, Bardot attempted to harm herself multiple times, unable to cope with the constant invasion of privacy. The woman who epitomized freedom on screen was deeply troubled by the commodification of her image. As the 1970s dawned, Bardot stepped away from cinema to rescue animals, channeling that same fiery energy against cruelty. She has devoted the last 50 years of her life to animal rights activism, using her fortune to establish sanctuaries and lobby for animal protection laws. The woman once condemned for exposing skin now fights those who exploit innocent creatures. The world's one-time epitome of inappropriate freedom traded bikinis for activist speeches, illustrating that the very traits once criticized, outspokenness, daring attire, unapologetic sincerity, also fueled a lifetime of passion, just redirected toward four-legged co-stars. Hedi Lamar, the brilliant beauty who shocked Europe. Long before Wi-Fi patents, Hedi Lamar shocked Europe in Ecstasy 1933 with a skinny-dipping scene and an implied moment of private bliss. Though filmed before she reached Hollywood, U.S. customs officials nearly seized prints as obscene. Vatican newspapers decried the film as inappropriate art. When MGM unveiled her to American audiences, studio chief Louis B. Mayer warned gossip writers she was in a naughty European picture, but here she would be a lady. Still, Lamar's smoldering gaze in Algiers and Samson and Delilah carried a sense of forbidden fascination. Despite her glamorous image, Lamar spent her evenings alone in her mansion, tinkering with mechanical inventions. Her dining room table was covered with drafting materials, and she would work late into the night on engineering projects, finding solace in mathematics and science. During World War II, she co-invented frequency-hopping technology now used in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, working with composer George Antheil to create a secret communication system for Allied torpedoes. The U.S. Navy classified the patent and didn't use it until decades later. Off-screen parties buzzed that she openly discussed love, science, and the ego, unladylike subjects for 1940s columnists. Lamar later quipped, "Any girl can be glamorous. All she has to do is stand still and look stupid." The irony, she was never still, never stupid, and never truly escaped the early stain of being called inappropriate. Today, her legacy balances genius and glamour, a reminder that sometimes the loudest critics focus on appearance while ignoring the brilliant mind beneath it. Clara Bose, the it girl who brought real life to screen. The Roaring Twenties crowned Clara Bose the it girl, but some editors muttered a harsher word: inappropriate. Raised in Brooklyn tenements, Bose brought real-life street slang to silent screens, laughing too loud and moving too freely for Victorian holdouts. In 1927, she dives headfirst into a department store display to win a boyfriend, antics older critics called unladylike. Tabloids fixated on her nights at the Coconut Grove, where she danced the Charleston until sunrise and reportedly raced her car down Sunset Boulevard. Rumors, often exaggerated, painted her as reckless with language, lovers, and money. Moralists feared she glamorized flapper excess, especially when she posed in bathing suits without stockings. Scandalous in 1920. Yet fans adored her relatable energy. Young women copied her bobbed hair and carefree grin. Bose's childhood was marked by extreme poverty and violence. Her mother once tried to harm her with a butcher knife during a psychotic episode, believing life's hardships were too much to bear. As a child, she often went without food and wore the same dress to school every day. Her entry into films came through a magazine contest. The prize was a small role, but it was her ticket out of poverty. After talkies arrived, contrary to popular myth, Bose's Brooklyn accent wasn't the reason for her retirement. She successfully made several talking pictures, but chose to retire from Hollywood at age 28 due to personal scandals and exhaustion. She retired to a Nevada ranch, raising horses and avoiding cameras. Decades later, historians credit her with injecting movies with modern speed, proving that authenticity, once dismissed as inappropriate, could in hindsight be pure cinematic oxygen. Jane Mansfield, the brilliant blonde who played dumb. If studios built Marilyn Monroe as champagne, they brewed Jane Mansfield as fizzy soda. Sweet, loud, liable to spill. Born Vera Jane Palmer to teenage parents struggling through the Depression, she escaped poverty through sheer determination and startling intelligence. Despite her dumb blonde image, Mansfield possessed an IQ of 163 and spoke 5 languages fluently: English, French, Spanish, German, and Italian. Arriving in Hollywood in the mid-1950s, Jane understood publicity better than most press agents. She accidentally popped out of a low-cut dress at one dinner, setting flash bulbs ablaze. Newspapers dubbed her the queen of wardrobe malfunctions, though they used the kinder 1950s word inappropriate. In The Girl Can't Help It, she sachets past milk bottles that explode with foam, subtlety never her strategy. Britain briefly refused her cabaret act for indecency, and the Catholic Legion of Decency protested her film Promises, Promises for featuring the first revealing scenes by a major star. Mansfield smiled through every uproar, traveling with a heart-shaped bathtub on tour and various pet chihuahuas. Between publicity stunts, Mansfield studied classical music, read philosophy, and practiced violin. She often frustrated reporters who came expecting empty chatter, only to find themselves discussing Dostoevsky or Nietzsche. Her tragic end in a 1967 car accident was particularly cruel. She perished instantly while her 3 young children, including future Law & Order actress Mariska Hargitay, survived in the back seat. The accident led to federal safety requirements for truck underride guards, forever known as Mansfield bars. Her image remains: pink spotlight, playful wink, and a Hollywood lesson that inappropriate can sometimes just mean having too much fun for polite society. Tula Bankhead, the Southern aristocrat who shocked everyone. If Mae West built her career on innuendo, Tula Bankhead demolished subtlety entirely with her bourbon-soaked honesty and adventurous spirit. Born into Alabama aristocracy, Bankhead was the daughter of a prominent politician, but she rejected Southern belle conventions in favor of theatrical rebellion. Her privileged background gave her the confidence to say and do exactly what she pleased, regardless of social consequences. Her husky voice and theatrical gestures made her a sensation on Broadway and London stages, but Hollywood struggled to contain her explosive personality within the confines of motion picture morality codes. Bankhead's romantic appetite was legendary. She claimed to have had affairs with over 500 people, both individuals of various genders, treating intimacy as another form of performance art. Her one-night stands became the stuff of Hollywood legend, shocking even the notoriously libertine film community. Critics labeled her stage performances inappropriate exhibitions rather than dramatic art, particularly when she appeared in provocative plays that pushed social boundaries. Her film career faltered partly because censors couldn't figure out how to tame her off-screen reputation. Her consumption of alcohol and substances was as legendary as her romantic conquests, leading to erratic behavior that sometimes included greeting dinner guests completely unclothed or hosting parties that lasted for days. She once famously declared, "My father warned me about people and alcohol, but never said anything about women and other substances." In her later years, Bankhead's addictions took their toll. She smoked 120 cigarettes daily and drank bourbon constantly, aging rapidly while maintaining her defiant attitude toward conventional morality. She passed away at 65, her body worn out by decades of excess, but her spirit unbroken. Her refusal to apologize for any aspect of her behavior made her both beloved by those who admired authenticity and reviled by those who demanded feminine conformity. Bankhead proved that inappropriateness could be a form of honesty, even when that honesty was too raw for comfort. Raquel Welch, the prehistoric beauty who sparked debates. A single publicity still, Raquel Welch, in a fur bikini from 1 million years BC, decorated teenage bedrooms worldwide in 1966 and sent critics digging for adjectives. Inappropriate surfaced alongside prehistoric. Welch followed with Myra Breckenridge, 1970, a satire so brash that Time magazine lamented tastelessness hitting its nadir. The movie featured gender-bending gags and risque costumes. Reviewers blamed Welch for the shock, though she had little control over the final cut. Born Jo Raquel Tejada to a Bolivian father and American mother, she grew up feeling like an outsider in both cultures. Her exotic beauty often typecast her in roles that emphasized her appearance over her acting ability, a limitation she fought throughout her career. Earlier in Lady in Cement, her wet dive entrance prompted Roger Ebert to quip about inappropriate exercises in cleavage. Off-screen, Welch challenged the double standard, saying, if action heroes could bare chests, she could bare shoulders. In contrast, she also fought constantly with directors and producers who wanted to reduce her to a fantasy object, often threatening to walk off sets when scripts called for gratuitous exposure. Her reputation as difficult stemmed largely from her refusal to be exploited. She fought to be cast in comedies and dramas, proving herself in The Three Musketeers with slapstick swordplay. Decades later, she headlined fitness videos sporting leotards, still deemed too daring for breakfast television in some regions. Yet her poise and charitable work softened earlier judgments, revealing an actress who wielded beauty like a sword, but aimed it at adventure rather than shock. Theodosia, the original vamp who started it all. Roll back to 1915, when movies had no sound but headlines shouted, "Enter Theodosia Burr Goodman," rechristened Theodosia. Born to a middle-class Jewish family in Cincinnati, Goodman was actually a shy, well-educated young woman who spoke softly and loved reading. Her transformation into the exotic vamp was entirely Fox Studios' creation, designed to capitalize on America's fascination with forbidden foreign women. Studio publicists claimed her name was an anagram for Arab temptress. In silent smash, A Fool There Was, She lounges on a deck chair, eyes smoked with coal, beckoning a married individual to ruin. One intertitle warns, "Kiss me, my fool." And audiences had never seen a woman command like that. Barra's posters draped her in snakes, skins, and tiger pelts. Church bulletins called her imagery satanic and inappropriate temptation. On set, she remained soft-spoken, yet Fox Studios staged photo shoots beside occult props to feed the myth. Small-town exhibitors sometimes refused to book her pictures, fearing parish backlash, but rail cars of young fans arrived anyway. Her contract required her to maintain the mysterious persona at all times. She could only appear in public at night wearing a veil and was forbidden from using public transportation. Ironically, this pioneer of screen sensuality lived a scandal-free private life, eventually marrying director Charles Brabin in a quiet ceremony that lasted until her passing. Though only a handful of Barra's films survive, her trademark dark eyes, bare arms, and deliberate wickedness etched the word vamp into pop culture, shorthand for a woman allegedly too free with charm. By the early 1920s, the act had cooled, audiences pivoting to flappers. Still, every femme fatale that followed borrowed something from Barra, a slow smile promising danger, proof that early Hollywood's idea of inappropriateness began with one woman who understood the power of suggestion in absolute silence. Betty Page, the pinup who sparked Senate hearings. Dark bangs, bright smile, and that famous leopard print bikini. Betty Page was 1950s pinup perfection. Yet her most notorious photos weren't cheesecake calendars. They were low-budget shorts featuring playful themes. Senators screamed excerpts during the 1955 Kefauver hearings, investigating juvenile delinquency, clutching pearls, while Page cracked a whip and giggled. The press labeled the footage inappropriate content corrupting youth. Born into poverty in Nashville, Page endured a childhood marked by inappropriate treatment and family instability. Her father abandoned the family when she was 10, leaving her mother to raise 7 children alone during the Depression. Page had simply answered a casting call and treated the work like any other modeling gig. Between photo shoots, she taught Sunday school at her local Baptist church and baked cookies for neighbors, creating a contradiction that confused moral crusaders. In 1957, she experienced a religious conversion at a multiracial Baptist church on New Year's Eve, which prompted her to leave modeling forever. She spent the following decades battling severe mental illness, including paranoid schizophrenia, and was hospitalized multiple times. Modern fans see empowerment in her poses. Mid-century critics saw only scandal. Page's story shows how context shapes the word inappropriate. What once spurred Senate alarms now decorates coffee mugs and fashion runways. Her shy grin reminding us that controversy often hides a surprisingly gentle soul. From silent-era snake jewelry to slow-motion ocean runs, these women show how the label inappropriate often signals nothing more than a shifting line between comfort and curiosity. Each carried private burdens that the public never fully understood. Childhood trauma, mental illness, mistreatment, discrimination, and the crushing weight of being reduced to single images while struggling to maintain their humanity behind the facade. Each time the line moved, Hollywood history moved with it. Proof that pushing boundaries, however politely or provocatively, is how new ground gets claimed on the silver screen. Their stories reveal that behind every inappropriate label lay complex women who dared to claim space in a world designed to contain them. Some found redemption, some found tragedy, but all left marks that outlasted their scandals. Their legacy reminds us that progress often wears the mask of impropriety, and today's shocking behavior becomes tomorrow's quaint memory, until a new generation of women arrives to push the boundaries even further. Looking back, it's amazing how many of these shocking moments now seem absolutely tame, isn't it? It makes you wonder what future generations will think about today's controversies. If these stories of resilience, rebellion, and redemption resonated with you, please subscribe and ring that notification bell. We're just getting started on our journey through Hollywood's most captivating, untold stories.